Okay. I'm going to see if I can re-add Instagram here in a moment, see if it'll let me. There we go. All right, I think it's sharing now. Once it goes, activates. That's the thing with these live streams. Every time I watch them, getting going is always a little bit of a rough go. All right, so we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube page and Instagram as I see it. Yeah, so the whole point of this discussion, conversation, if you will, is to help folks out that are looking to transition into the executive protection space. Now, transition that could be from you're from the military, or you're recently out of the military, or you're in law enforcement, or recently out of law enforcement, or you're in some other trade. I know guys that have been, last year they were doing HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning stuff, and then a year later they're traveling the world with a client. Or you're in uniform security and you're wondering how to progress into that next level, that higher level that you perceive as the kind of the next step up into plain clothes and traveling around with clients. We see stuff on social media and it seems sexy. It seems really cool. Oh, you get to travel the world, and that attracts people. So we're going to be talking about that. And basically what I want to do is give you a heads up on how to do some things to make that transition possible and make it a little smoother for you. So as you see my eyes looking around, I'm looking at different cameras. I got different things going on here. So basically what we're going to talk about is where to start, how to get going. We're going to talk about the state credentialing, what that looks like. We're going to talk about different types of EP work. We use this term, executive protection. I'm going to talk about the different types, recognize credible EP schools and training. We're going to talk about networking. We're going to talk about your resumes, bios, your credentials, a couple basic apps that we use for communications, some of the most common, and we'll wrap it up with some ad hoc work. And then if any questions that you may have, I will address those as well. So a little bit of an introduction, who am I? Why are you tuned in to watch this, all this good stuff? Yeah, my name is Fidel Taylor. I am the CEO and the president of Covenant Protection Group. I got started, way back in the day. I was in the military, United States Army. I was in Desert Shield, and it transferred over to Desert Storm. That's the one way long time ago, right? Early 90s. After that, got out, went to college. After that, was pursuing a career in baseball. And after that, went into my career in law enforcement. So I did get my start in law enforcement late because I was chasing that boyhood dream of being a major league ball player. So yeah, got into law enforcement. And then after law enforcement, transitioned into the executive protection arena, which at the time I didn't even know existed. I didn't know anything about it. So it's kind of my thing is to help you elevate and escalate that process of what it is. And now in 2026, what is it, June 22nd, 2026, I come across law enforcement people all the time as I'm traveling around. asking me questions about things and hey, how do you get in it? How do you do this? How do you do that? A little bit about my background in law enforcement. I worked patrol a good portion of my career. Absolutely loved being a patrol cop, street cop, and being out there, being mobile, getting to dictate what you're doing, who you're going after. For me, I was a very proactive cop, so I loved going after and hunting. As I say, there's not many greater thrills than hunting your fellow man, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Some of my collateral duties as a patrol officer, I was a field training officer. So basically, officers come into your department, they're new, they get their orientation, then they get assigned a first phase, second phase, third phase FTO. I had that reputation of, you didn't want to be with Officer Taylor. Why? Yeah, I was tough. I was extremely tough on officers. The agency I worked for is a very well-known Bay Area city, well-known for violence. So it's not about, if you're going to be tested. It's a matter of when, how soon are you going to be tested, and are you going to be ready? I was also a firearms instructor. Got onto the narcotics task force, was on that for a while. And then as the department started up the federal gang task force, and they loan a body to the task force, and all the surrounding agencies, loan a body and so forth, you kind of group together. And then that was oversaw by the federal DOJ and the U.S. Marshals. So got to do a bit of that. Unfortunately for me, I was right at 10 years in my career, absolutely having a blast, was loving the job. I got injured in line of duty. And then 3 years later, or 2 years later, something like that, I got medically retired from being a police officer, which was one of my dreams to do and be. I had a 3-year medical hiatus. I suffered TBIs, a bunch of shoulder, knee injuries, that stuff like that. I had a total 8 surgeries. And then 3 years later, after physical therapy, surgeries, etc., they got me to the point where they're like, okay, you're good to go. They wrap up the workers' comp disability stuff, medically retired me. And then I had to transition. This is 14 years ago. So I had to transition into the private sector. Now, at the time, I did not know anything about executive protection, security drivers, residential security drivers, close protection. Sure, I'd heard the term bodyguard, but I didn't live in LA. I live in Northern California. So I was really ignorant to the whole world of executive protection. I did start working. I met a guy who became a friend, who was a director at an arena. He hooked me up with the San Francisco 49ers. At the time, they were at a Candlestick, and I started working over there, working kind of quasi-uniform polo BDUs and your ODOs, off-duty officers. And so as I started working on that team, I worked there for 2 seasons, 2011 and 2012. And then that's when I started learning about all this other stuff that was out there, because the 49ers, they had us, the ODOs, that were in the polos doing all the heavy lift work. And then off to the side, you had these guys in suits and ties standing around, eating food, watching the game. And I'm like, who are those guys? I want that job. How do I do that? And so come to learn and find out that was the EP team for the team and the coaches and this and that, So I started asking questions and being inquisitive and whatnot. That was one of those teams where you get handpicked to be on the team. You don't apply for it, that type of thing. But anyways, so that's I started learning about the whole industry of executive protection. All of a sudden, my phone rings, being that I'm retired law enforcement. I have my security credentials. I have my LEOSA HR 218, AKA, and I get a phone call by a guy saying, hey, you don't know me, but I have a business, security business out in the Bay Area. And I heard you're new to the industry. You've got your credentials, your LEOSA, and I'm looking for a security driver and I forget what it was. It was in a couple of days and so forth. And I'm like, that's a security driver. Okay. I was thinking, I've been a cop driving around a patrol car 10 years. I could be a security driver, long story short, he had me go pick up two couples at the Napa FBO. I'd never been to an FBO. I had to Google what was an FBO. And I was like, oh, they're using a military term, fixed base operations. I didn't connect the dots at the time. But yeah, so I go to the Napa FBO. I go pick up my rental car, all this stuff. I pick up these two couples, very, very lovely, a major CEO of a major corporation. I drive them from the FBO to the resort. 2 days later, I come back up. I pick them up at the resort. And I take them to the FBO. That was it. Nowadays, I would call that Uber Black. So yeah, I was titled as a security driver. I didn't know jack shit about being a security driver. I didn't know what I didn't know. So with my mindset, I started, asking questions. I'm thinking about how could I have done this better and so forth. And on my LinkedIn profile, I actually wrote an article about this several years ago called The Executive Security Driver, Raising the Baseline, the art of, and kind of about, going more in depth about my story and my experience as a security driver. From there, you just start making a name and a rep for yourself. And it's been fast and furious the last 14 years, 13 years, something like that in the executive protection world. After, my law enforcement and then transitioning into now the private sector, some of the details and stuff that I've been on. I've been a security detail lead for a presidential campaign, 6 months on the campaign trail. That was an amazing experience. It was because of my reputation that I was called for that job. Something I'm very proud of. Traveling the country and traveling around with a presidential candidate for 6 months is extremely exhausting, but it was a great experience. I've also worked with other presidential candidates since then, and in the last three presidential campaigns. So 2019, 2020, 24, 5. That was the last one. The first one was 2016. I've worked with U.S. senators. I've worked with U.S. Congress members. So those from the political arena. I've worked with numerous celebrities, A-list celebrities, as they would say. I've been on tour with celebrities. Celebrity work, not really my thing. Everybody's got their niche, though, in the EP world. I have worked for high net worth multi-billionaires. Most of them, you would have no idea if they were standing in line next to you at the local coffee shop. You wouldn't have any clue who they were. I worked with numerous corporate CEOs and other C-suite level executives, whether the CFO, CLO, all that good stuff. I have built executive protection teams from the ground up from, hey, we got a brand new client. We need to hire, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. Security driving teams, having an outfit or a fleet of 4 executive limos, the SUVs, and then outfitting them to all the equipment that they need. I've worked red carpet events. I've worked the Oscars. I've worked the Oscars after parties. I've worked the Breakthrough Awards. So I've done a bit of that stuff, the event security stuff as well. I've done the strike security. I think I pretty much have done just about everything you could think of. I've done uniformed stuff at a bank because they, San Jose PD had intel that this bank, this particular branch, based on a CI, was going to get hit on a certain day. And I get a phone call saying, hey, this one's going to be, hot. Are you interested? Me, I'm a fiend for the action. I like that. And so, yeah, I stood out there all day in uniform. I guess I was posing, undercover as a uniform security guard. There were surveillance unit out there and so forth. They didn't hit that bank that day. They said that later they got arrested. And I guess in the interview and so forth, said that they were out there at that bank, but they said that guy looked too eager for the action. No, I just made that up. That's what I was told though by the surveillance guys. Some goals and objectives. For me, the goal and objective I have for you folks watching this, whether it's right now or later, is to get you started off on the right foot. I'm all about, anyone who's worked with me knows I'm all about setting each other, teammates, and the detail up for success. Always protecting the client, always protecting their reputation, protecting each other, not letting you do some stupid stuff because maybe you don't know any better. Or maybe it was just a bad judgment, and say, hey, whoa, time, let's talk about this. So I'm a big advocate and proponent. I look at this stuff in the EP world. We're high level protectors, at least we should be. And I look at it as, my background is playing sports. So baseball, I played college baseball. I played one season on the football team because they needed help as a receiver. I've coached high school sports, championship level teams. So that's the mentality I have is as a teammate. And, I've been around Tom Brady several times and listening to him and his speeches, watching his videos and holding each other accountable. To me, that's the mentality I come out of at it. People say, or they like to say, iron sharpens iron. But the problem is when the iron goes to sharpen the other iron, sometimes that iron is aluminum foil or, tin foil or something else, but it's not iron because feelings get hurt. And I've been told I have a brash way about me. But in the protection industry, I kind of think that shouldn't be a thing. We should be able to talk to each other. Let's say, for example, after a SWAT call out or training incident, and we get done and we go back and we do an after action. And sometimes there's disagreements. You've got a lot of alpha males in that circle. And sometimes boys will be boys and it gets heated. It gets argumentative. I can think of twice where it got physical and pull and rip guys apart from each other, whatnot. It happens. But at the end of the day, we love each other. We're brothers. We're a team, and we don't want to let each other fail or the team to fail. And heaven forbid, something happen to the client and make national news, international news. So that's kind of the mentality that I come at it from. I want to accelerate your learning curve to get you up to speed quicker, right? For me, going and learning and doing details, especially by yourself, who's to say if you're doing things the right way, best practices, is there a different way? So the way I look at it is that there's a right way. There's probably a wrong way, but there's always different ways. And this work of executive protection, security work, there's so many different techniques out there. It is crazy. So even though 12 years later, I'm still learning little tidbits and techniques. And hey, this guy over here, he does it this way. This guy does it this way. Well, I have the mindset of, well, why? Explain. I want to understand. I want to understand the context. I want to get into the minutia of it to the granular level. And that's just the way I look at it. And it helps me better understand versus you just telling me, hey, you do it this way. Okay. And then you just do it that way. And then maybe next time that person does it that way, but you're like, no, why'd you do that? And you're like, well, last time. And you're like, well, that was last time. Well, that person doesn't know. They're like, wait a minute. Last time was last time and this time is this time. Help me out here. Right. So this arena is a very gray minded mindset, for people, I think, to be very successful. If you're that type of brain mentality of you like things black and white, in my opinion, you're probably going to struggle, especially if you have a client or protectee that is very spontaneous, doesn't give you a whole lot of information, and all of a sudden they just flip something on you. Hey, let's go here. You're like, well, I didn't get a chance to advance. I just took this class, this school training, and they told me I have to advance and so forth. Well, so accelerating that learning curve and avoiding, so many pitfalls that others have made time and time again. Some of the, the stories I hear to this day, and I'm just like, wait a minute. We made those mistakes back in 24, 22, 2018. And it's like, when are we learning and accelerating the learning curve so that if someone newer comes into the industry, and when I say newer, you could have been from law enforcement or the military or uniform security or a trades or whatever, but you're new to this industry. I don't care what your background is. Well, I care. That's what got you here. But understand that this is a different arena. All right. So you may be former retired law enforcement, and you're working with a guy, and let's say you're 55, 56 years old, like me, I'm 57, and you're working with a guy who's 26, who's relatively out of the military. Well, what did he do in the military? What did you do in law enforcement? Right. Understand that if you're new into the EP world, understand you're bringing some skills to the arena. What are those skills? Hard skills, soft skills. We talk about them all the time. But understand it is a new arena. It's a new game. So have an open mindset. Let's talk about some state credentialing. So I'm in the state of California, as I mentioned, the Bay Area. So I'll speak generally speaking to the state of California. That's what I know well. In the state of California, I am a licensed training facility. I'm also a licensed training instructor. So I'm both. In order for anything to be done through BSIS as far as credentialing, the certificates, you have to have a training facility and you have to have an instructor, and they don't have to be the same person, but the instructor has to be married to the facility in order for the facility to have a training venue. So if you're only a BSIS instructor and you're not married to a facility, you can't do anything. You can't do any credentialing. So I am both. And there's some personal, professional reasons why I did it that way. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about a resource that I want you to get yourself very familiar with if you're newer to the industry. I'm going to mention a buddy of mine who has a training company and a security company, and he does great work. I was working a detail a couple of weeks ago, and we were all over way up Northern California, and the guy I was paired with was from SoCal. And so we were talking, and I mentioned my buddy's name. And to me, if you're in the industry more than 6 months, you should know this name. And this guy he's been in the industry for several years, and he had no idea who I was talking about. That blew me away. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go to my buddy's website and his name and all that good stuff, so I can familiarize you with him, because he is a great resource. All right. So let me get this up. So LaSorsa and Associates. It is run by Joe Jr. So Joe LaSorsa. Joe, he lives in North Carolina, and he does his training schools in Miami and in Las Vegas, and they alternate back and forth, right? So definitely when we talk about, companies and so forth, he's definitely one of the big ones to go get that EP training, and not just EP training, but TSCM, as we call bug sweep, kind of layman's terms, consulting, private investigations. Joe, I've taken numerous of Joe's courses because I love training. I love getting every little nugget, tidbit that I possibly can. So I've taken numerous courses from Joe. Joe's a great instructor. He's got a great reputation in the industry. All right, that's enough about Joe. So as I scroll down, we're going to talk about the security licensing boards and information by state. So just come on this link. I'll share this link with you, and you're going to click on whatever state that you happen to be in. And, again, for me here, I'm going to click on California. So as I do that, I'm going to click on California. And then as you click on California, it's just basically a link, and it takes you to the state of California. I don't even know if I'm doing this right. Forgive me. I am very new to this screen or simulcasting stuff. So, all right, I got it up here. So I'm going to add this to the stage up here. So this is the BSIS for the state of California, what they call it, Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. You're going to scroll down here. You're going to click on apply for a license. You got security guard. So after you click on the home page, add this to the screen. You know, so you can see here, you're going to apply for the application for a security guard. You can do the application for firearm permit. So the reason I wanted to point this out is in the state of California, you know, in the EP world, we don't wear uniforms. We wear plain clothes. It could be jeans and a polo. It can be, you know, Dockers. It could be a suit and tie. My typical attire is nice jeans, nice casual shoes, not tennis shoes. It might be on certain details, but not the ones that I've done. And then collared shirts. Depending on the weather, I'll wear, you know, a vest, maybe a light jacket. It just depends on the environment that you're in and what you're doing. But regardless, we're in plain clothes. All right. Which means if you're armed, you're going to be carrying concealed. In the state of California, in order to carry concealed firearm, there's 3 permits that you need to have. Number 1, this BSIS security guard permit. That's what California references. Anyone in the state of California working security is you are a security guard. So keep that in mind. Secondly, you need the exposed firearm permit. I know, we're concealed. And then third is your concealed carry permit. Now, the concealed carry permit, that could be your county or your CCW permit issued by your county sheriff, or you may be in a city where it was issued to you by your city police chief. Now, I'm also a CCW instructor. I'm currently certified to teach for 9 different counties throughout the Bay Area and Northern California. So you need all 3 of those. Regarding LEOSA, aka the HR 218, there's a lot of heartburn in the industry nationwide about officers, current or retired, former, working security with only a LEOSA, HR 218. Look, here's the deal. If you're working in a state where, like California, where if you're working security, having just your LEOSA HR 218, just for clarification, is not sufficient to be legally working security in California. You need all 3 of those permits, like I explained. Now, there are some states across the country that you don't have to have a state permit, and having a LEOSA then is fine. And then you'll hear people say, well, LEOSA is only for private personal use. Well, so is a CCW, right? Issued to you by your county or city police department, county sheriff. But as we all know, in the elements and rules of self-defense, that self-defense applies to third parties. So I guess it's implied, if I'm working for my client, that the people who hired me are going to hope, maybe is a better word, that if I had to, I would use my firearm to protect my protectee that I'm with, right? So that's the assumption there. But a huge advantage is if you're traveling around the country on a detail, then with your LEOSA, you have the ability to carry in all 50 states and territories, right? I did a detail several years ago where I was down in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. I was able to carry my firearm down there. There's some other little things you got to do, but you get the point. So make sure you have that, the state credentials. So again, use Joe's website, the link there, click on your state, look into it, what requires the credentials, permits, if you will, to work security. Now, let's talk about the different types of executive protection. We use that word, and it's all over the place when people say, oh, I do EP, I do this, I do that. But then when I work with somebody and I'm just like, I'm seeing a lack of fundamental skills that I would have expected to see if someone's been working, let's say EP on their resume for 5 years, then I would expect you to come to the table with certain skill sets, or maybe as a security driver. I hire a lot of security drivers. And then when they're working with me and I'm just kind of like shaking my head going, and kind of a sidebar note, it goes to the fact that in our industry, there is not yet a recognized standard in the industry to say, hey, if you're saying that you're an executive protection agent, executive protection specialist, executive protection, awesome tier 1 dudette, that it means you have some certain skill sets, and they're, with the metrics, they're quantifiable, and then be able to see them play out on a detail. So to me, we talk about the security industry in general. You say, oh, I'm former law enforcement, retired law enforcement, former military, retired military. You could say, oh, I'm security. Well, that's such a broad word, just like law enforcement and military. Then it's like, okay, well, what kind of law enforcement? What kind of military? What kind of security? Oh, I do executive protection. Oh, okay. In our world, in my opinion, I think a lot of people, they're always using the word EP, and they're conflating it, I think, with CP, close protection. So to me, executive protection is the big word under security. And then what type of security? Well, executive protection. Well, what kind of executive protection? Right? And that's where we get into the different types. And so to me, again, just my opinion, I have talked with other people about it. And then when I bounce this off of them, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So one type is, as I mentioned, CP, close protection. That means I'm moving with the protectee, client, principal, etc. I'm going to use the word protectee because that's the person I'm protecting. That protectee may have their spouse with them, may have their children with them. So now you got a group. They may have another executive with them that's part of their corporation, right? So now you got 2 protectees. So that's close protection. If I'm with a presidential candidate or a senator or a congress member, and I'm going with them, I'm moving with them, I'm holding the door open for them, I'm holding the door of the vehicle open for them, I'm mobile, I'm with the protectee, that to me is close protection. With close protection, there's different niches of close protection. I've mentioned them already. We got high net worth, multi-billionaire folks. We got C-level, C-suite executives. So that could be the CEO, the CFO, the chief legal officer, whomever that is from the C-suite that comes from whatever corporation. You got celebrities. The range of celebrities is all over the place. I've been with some very high profile names, which is how I learned that's not really my thing. It's not the celebrity so much. It's their entourage that comes with the whole celebrity package. They're usually the problem children. But you got celebrities. Then you could also be, so you're driving around or you're going to an event with a celebrity. Usually not many of them have a full-time team. It's a very small number, very small percentages. If anything, they have a residential team, but not any, they drive themselves. They go wherever they're going, unless they're going to a big event or something like that. Then they'll reach out and hire some EP, close protection people for the event, whatever it may be. You got touring. All right. If you're with an artist, a singer or something like that, and they're going on tour and they've got, let's Taylor Swift, right? She's got a huge EP team. So that's the touring stuff. Like I said, I've been on some of the touring things. Again, not really my thing. Politicians, that's kind of become my niche, my reputation around the country. I've been with numerous politicians, both people running for major office, say, for example, president, worked with some U.S. senators and several U.S. Congress members as well. So that's the close protection, and then the niches under close protection. Then you got secure transportation, the drivers, right? So many times when I look at my driver and I say, hey, what makes you a security driver? And they get that deer in the headlight look, right? If you can't articulate that to me, by, hey, I do A, B, C, D, E, every time that we're going from A to B to C to D, to all these different locations, I'm always looking at my routes, the timing of my routes. What is there a better route, alternate route? Oh, I know my protectee is going to be working on their laptop and they don't want bumpy roads, right? So I'm going to maybe pick my route based on that, something that's smoother. My protectee gets car sick and they don't want to be on windy roads. Okay. So I'm going to pick my route based on that. Anybody can literally punch in an address on your map app and follow that blue dot wherever it goes. That does not make you a security driver. So then you have to have that mindset of, okay, well, what does? So to me, I've taught numerous security driving courses, both in Northern California, Southern California. I've taught in Texas. I've taught in Tennessee. Going to specific teams that are there and dialing them in on their skill sets of being a security driver. And what does that look like? So again, this is all work to me under executive protection, because as a security driver, am I protecting the executive, the client? To me, I am. Residential estate security. A lot of people in the industry look at RST, residential security teams, as kind of an entry level down here into the executive protection world. And that is true in a lot of sense. This is where you can kind of make your reputation. How do you carry yourself? How do you speak to the staff, right? If you come in and you use a lot of street slang and you're just rough around the edges, some people, the executive assistant or the personal assistant or the team lead or the manager, they may look at a situation there and be like, yeah, this guy, I would not want to put him with the client, right? Or the protectee. That's not a good thing for you, all right? But that's where, on a RST, if you come in and you're well-spoken, you're well-groomed, you look sharp every day, you come to work and you're on point, right away, you are going to stand out and you're going to be starting to be eyeballed by the others, whether you know it or not, for moving into the EP team, close protection team, driving team, whatever it may be. But maybe you want that RST. You like that set schedule. Maybe it's 5/8, maybe it's the 12s and it's 4 on, 3 off, 3 on, 4 off, whatever. And you like that. That's your structure. That's your jam. So be it. Be an awesome RST agent. But to me, again, that's another rung in the EP umbrella there. And then you got covert protection, right? So covert protection is not close protection because you're not close with the protectee. You're down the street, or maybe you're on the other side of the conference room or wherever, but you're not giving any clues or shouldn't be giving any clues to anybody that you're part of a covert protection team for protectee over there and so forth. I did a lot of this work back in law enforcement when I was on the narcotics team. Our protectee in certain cases was a confidential informant. In some cases, it was an actual undercover officer. If that officer gets into a jam, guess what? They're saying the audible signal, maybe they give a visual signal, take the hat off, or run their hand through their hair and make a comment saying at the same time, and then boom, the bus team comes in, or we are the QRF team, the quick reaction force, to come in and save that confidential informant or the undercover officer, whatever the case may be, depending on what type of operation we're running. So it's the same concepts and so forth. You can watch movies with Tom Cruise in them and so forth, and where they're doing the same concepts and so forth. And now, because the EP world is so really new in the grand scheme of things, it's so new that you got 30-year-old SMEs out there, right? But yeah, that's another level of executive protection to me. And let's not forget our really smart folks, the cybercrime and the protective intelligence and so forth. So someone may be working they may be working remotely from home or in a GSOC or in a SOC or whatever. They on the other side of the country, but they're monitoring intel. They're pushing information to you. They got geofencing set up around and all this good stuff. So to me, that's another rung of executive protection. All right. Moving on to some EP training schools. I'm going to pick it up a little bit. Some of the ones that are reputable, there's a bunch out there, again, because there's no standard. So if a guy looks the part and he's charismatic and puts on a good impression out there, and if you don't know any better and you're coming into the industry, you're like, man, that guy looks badass. He's buff, he's got tattoos, he wears stuff on his head or from his belt or whatever. He's got a huge social media following. I'm going to go to that school, that training. Okay. But here's some ones that are reputable throughout the industry where if you go and you invest in yourself, maybe you've got a GI Bill, maybe you take out a loan, a small loan to pay the expenses because of the tuition, travel expenses, hotel, airport, any equipment you may need for that particular course. So you got ESI, Executive Security International, you got EPI, Executive Protection Institute. You got R.L. Oatman and Associates. They're the ones that, you get to go out on the Dallas Cowboys on the field and take your picture and stuff at the end of the training. So if you're a Cowboys fan, that may attract you. And then, of course, you got my buddy Joe LaSorsa I mentioned that does amazing training. AUS has an Executive Protection Training Academy as well. Some really good people out there, very knowledgeable. And they put on a pretty good training academy as well. Regarding standards and coming into the industry, let's talk about resumes, bios, and so forth. So your resume, make sure it's up to date. Make sure it's factual. If you're going for any regular full-time job, that stuff's going to be vetted. And if you say you have a college degree or you say you worked at this company and you were a team lead or whatever, or you have this credential and so forth, that stuff's going to be looked at. It's going to be vetted. And so make sure your resume is factual. Make sure it's up to date. I get it. Hollywood gives us perspective and social media gives us perspective of, we're running around with guns and maybe even rifles and stuff. That is not EP work, folks. One time in my 12 years, did I have an SBR between my legs in the vehicle as we were rolling. That was the summer of love, 2020, while the riots on the streets and so forth. We had a 3-vehicle SUV going down the freeway. And yeah, I've got a very important high-level CEO with me. And my attitude was, hey, I'm going to get this person safely home or to the office. And whatever comes about afterwards, if something were to happen, I'll deal with that down the road. Other than that, no. So I get it. And then resume, we want to highlight a lot of hard skills. Yeah, I'm prior law enforcement. I did EVOC training. Okay, cool. I'm an expert shooter. Okay, cool. I would also want to see you identifying soft skills. Maybe you supplemented, the last few years and you were working as a bartender, or maybe while you were in college, you were a bartender. Use that as an example because that's something I did. Bartenders are very well known for having the gift of gab and being able to speak to people and relate to people and so forth. Maybe you're a waiter or a waitress. Again, the more that you connect with that person, we all know the better tip you're likely to get. I can't flaunt it, so that's not going to work for me, at least at most restaurants. So you just got to have that kind of that personal, interpersonal communication skills and so forth. So don't be afraid to highlight some skill sets that show customer service based stuff. Maybe you were in retail or something like that. To me, I would definitely be putting that on there. Medical, if you're going to be getting some training and transitioning into this sector, If first aid, CPR, AED, everybody has that. All right. I know 10-year-olds that have that. So that's just a formality. It's not anything that impresses anybody. You do need that kind of higher level of medical training. We know these acronyms of TCCC, TECC, but there's a bunch of other ones out there. There's TMEP, one I just recently took a couple months ago, but there's other advanced stuff out there. There's mountain wilderness EMT, there's regular EMT, there's paramedics. So if you have that higher level of medical skill, man, props to you. Or if you're looking at some training and stuff to invest in yourself, get that, do that. That will definitely pay off. The ROI is amazing on that. All right. Let's talk about what you put on your resume or your bio as far as your contact information. Your email. Understand that most jobs you're going to be doing until you get a full-time job, if you get a full-time job, if that's your goal objective, a full-time job, and then you've got, with security, your name at, security ABC company. Other than that, you're going to be using your personal email and your personal cell phone number for a lot of these communications and interactions and so forth. So what does your email say about you? Me personally, I went out and created a specific email for me that I can use in a quasi-professional world, right? It's my name. But what I don't want to see is, and this is, I saw one time, and I literally had to create another email for the guy because I really wanted the guy on the detail to help out, but I could not give forward to the client his email. His email said something to the effect of Raiders suck. True, totally true. But the client may be a total diehard Raiders fan. So that's not going to work out well for you. So what does that email say about you? Your phone, your cell phone, understanding you're going to be using your cell phone. That's going to be your primary point of contact. If I call you for a detail and I get your voicemail, what does your voicemail message say about you? Because I can tell you this, I have called people to talk to them about using them for an ad hoc job. And just based off their voicemail message, I went, no way, hung up. That person doesn't even know that they lost out on a job. So what does your voicemail say? Make sure it's appropriate. Bios. Bios is something where if you're doing ad hoc work, I want bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. I just want the meat and potatoes because I'm probably putting together a detail very quickly. It could be a 2-person detail. One of the biggest details I put together was 80 people. So I'm filtering through 80 resumes and bios and all that stuff. So, to me, I just wanted the bullet points and the faster I could get through the bullet points and, hey, does this person have a background that I am expecting to have for this particular type of job? For me personally, I have 4 different bios depending on the nature of the work that I may be called to do. So I have an instructor bio, I have a management bio, I have a surveillance, counter surveillance specific bio, because in the security world, private investigations, I'm a licensed private investigator. So it highlights all that stuff. And then I have my general bio, which is just kind of a, hey, I'm amazing, I'm awesome, that type of stuff. These are some of my X amount of years of military, X amount of years law enforcement, training schools, the most recent ones, medical certified, CCW, LEOSA. It's just the highlights, right? So that when I say there's 2 types of bios, that's those bullet points. If you're applying for a job or it's certain people's preference, they want like a paragraph or 2, like a half or 3/4 page bio on you, to where it's a whole paragraph and you got to read through it. And you're talking about yourself in third person. Hey, Fidel is a retired police officer. When his jobs, duties he did as a police officer, he did this, 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 and this. He's a retired or prior military, and his military was this specialty. In security, he's done this. These are his his bona fides, what training classes he's been to, what medical level he's at, CCW, LEOSA, etc. And then they always want you to put a little snippet at the bottom of, in his spare time, Fidel likes to golf and travel the country and long walks on the beach, because they're trying to connect, right? For me personally, that's not my thing. If I'm hiring people, I just say, hey man, give me a bio and just give me the bullet points, just because I've been in long enough where I can tell the difference between, real, fake, okay, etc. So just understand that there's two types of bios out there. Certain people that are reaching out to you and saying, hey, send me a bio. They may prefer one type over the other. How are you going to know? I don't know. Let's talk about your headshot. So a lot of times when we are putting together a team, the client, whoever we're putting that together for, it could be the chief security officer, it could be a program manager, it could be an executive assistant. They are always wanting a headshot with the bio or resume. Not on the resume necessarily, but they want to see it. So when I reach out to people and I say, hey, send me a headshot, I literally have had people send me pictures when they're in the bathroom holding the phone up in the mirror. One I remember seeing over the guy's shoulder, there was another guy using the urinal at the time, and that's the picture you sent me. I've had people send me pictures and sitting in their vehicles. All right. Had a guy send me a picture out on the lake, having a good time. I mean, I'm like, dang, I'm missing out. Those are not appropriate, right? Those are not professional photos. So my recommendation is, if you don't have a professional style headshot, at least put a collared shirt on, maybe a button-up shirt, dress shirt, maybe a sport coat on over it, maybe with a tie. Stand next to a blank wall. And then if you got some lighting, put some good lighting on it so it doesn't, don't stand too close to the wall, so that way it doesn't cast a shadow on it. People taking the picture for you, they can zoom in, right? Because initially they're standing too far away. And then, hey, here's a little tip. Smile. Just give a nice, casual little smile. Yeah, like that. People want to see a little personality. One of the big knocks on me as I was starting in this industry was I was too robotic. I was too rigid. I was too stiff. I didn't show much personality. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. So I figured, if I don't do anything, say anything, how can I mess up? Well, the problem is you're going into these people's offices, into their homes, and if they feel uncomfortable or weird around you because you're so robotic, it just won't work for them. And they'll reach out to their point of contact and they'll be like, hey, yeah, I'm sure that guy's qualified and everything, but yeah, can we try somebody else? Right? So little personality. Credentials, make sure your credentials I like to get mine all on one page. So for me, I have a lot of credentials. I have my guard card, my exposed firearm permit, my LEOSA. I have my other credentials from other states that I'm certified to work in. I have my medical credentials. So I try to put everything, you can shrink them down, et cetera, onto one page, 2 pages if you need be. But that way, you're trying to make everything easy for these folks that are looking at this stuff. If they ask for certain certificates, don't put a full page sheet out there and whatnot on my green screen and do that. Shrink down, let's say 4 certificates onto one sheet. And make sure they're all oriented the right way. Make sure if there's expiration dates on them, make sure you update them and keep current. I do have a PDF that I put together some time ago. I call it Spun Up, because if we're putting together ad hoc work means temporary, basically it could be a 1-day detail. It could be a 2-hour detail. It could be 1 day, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, but it's temporary. A lot of times when we're spinning up these details, things for the manager or the lead is fast and furious. And if you could have your stuff ready to go right away and organize, and you get a phone call or a WhatsApp message, a text message, whatever, hey, we got this details, paying X, it's over in this area you in, and you're like, yeah, I'm in. Okay, send your information to this. And literally 2 minutes later, you go bing, and your zip file and all your stuff goes right to that person. It's labeled properly and all that good stuff. It's going to give the impression that, hey, this guy's squared away. He's done this before. Again, that's what we're trying to do, help you out. Some communication apps that we use in this industry, WhatsApp and Signal those are the two main ones. Yes, there are some other ones, but those are the basic ones. So make sure you download WhatsApp, Signal, make sure you have your accounts, make sure you're familiar in how to use them and so forth. We use those quite a bit. And then when I get a retired cop, like last week, I had a retired cop on a detail. I was literally spent about an extra 15 minutes with him on his phone, showing him how to download WhatsApp or Signal, vice versa, whichever it was, creating his account, the number and all that good stuff. So he could know how to use it. So those are just some basic communication apps that we use in the industry. Networking. How do you find the work? How do you get into the work? First and foremost, what I want you to understand about this industry, it is your reputation by and large that makes your phone ring. Okay. So guard your reputation and treat it, as a special thing, because it is. So I can say, oh, I know so-and-so, right? And just because I know so-and-so, that doesn't really mean much. If that guy gets the work, and then let's say he's not in California, and then he's like, okay, this detail's out in California. Who do I know? He needs to know you, right? So I know a lot of people. Not very many people know me. But that's what I want, is I want those people to know me, or, hey, someone reaches out to me and they say, hey, who do you know? Are you available? Well, I'm not available. I rarely am, but who do I know? Right. And I'd say, hey, this guy, I worked with him actually a couple of weeks ago. This guy's squared away. And then I connect you two together, and next thing you know, you're on a detail. If you're working with me and you do good work and you've got a good attitude and you're wanting to learn and all this good stuff, and we're able to talk about things, and remember, iron sharpens iron, and you've got some good skill sets and so forth, then yeah, I'll definitely use you again on other work. I'll give you recommendations. So the good thing about that is you don't need to know so many other people, but because I've now worked with you, I'm basically rubber stamping you that, yeah, you're good to go. You're squared away. I get the calls. Hey, Fidel, who do you know? Hey, I know this guy out here. I know this guy here. I know this guy here. And I know he'll take care of you. Right. So that you're being able to tap into my network. Mixers. There's a lot of mixers out there. The last couple of years, mixers has really become the thing. It used to be that there was one mixer a year, or, whatever. Now there's a touring mixer entourage group that's going around the country. A lot of good dudes that are going, and they'll have one in Texas. They got one in Florida. They got one in New Orleans and so forth. So you need to start following these social media groups. Joe LaSorsa, back to Joe, huge contributor to our industry. He has a Facebook group. It's called Protective Security Group. Did I get that right? Protection Security Group. He's got, 20,000 people that are in part of that group. Stuff gets advertised in there about mixers and stuff like that. LinkedIn. Do you have a LinkedIn page? You're going to need to. So create that LinkedIn profile. Again, nice photo, all your information and so forth. And then stuff gets shared on LinkedIn, and then you start following those people. The mixers, identify the locations if you can make it out to them. Keep in mind, mixers, you know how women, they all get dressed up, and they say they get dressed up, they're not getting dressed up for their man. They're getting dressed up for each other. And so when they go out somewhere to a social event, the women always check each other out, and their attire and their clothing and this and that. Well, guess what? You go to a mixer, you're being checked out. You're being evaluated as far as your appearance. Do you look the part, right? So many times guys and women will get the job simply because they look the part, right? So if you're really fit and so forth, that's really going to help you. If you look that part, that's really going to help you. The executive protection world is a very shallow vein industry. Very much so. So keep that in mind. You go to mixers, be friendly. Don't be, just talk to people, shake hands. How you doing? Hey, I'm new to the industry. I'm trying to learn, do you have any good pointers for me and so forth? Don't go in there and trying to, toss salad your credentials and you've done this and you've done that and blah blah blah. That's you're in a room with a bunch of others that have done this, most likely. I say most likely, or they know how to talk a good game at least. So you're really not going to impress anybody there by saying how awesome you are. You can shoot this well or do this or that. That's not going to impress anybody. So just go out there, be cool, be chill. No ego. Conferences. So there's a few different conferences. Just this past week, I just got back from Florida, where I was at a conference in Orlando. That was the BEP-ESOC conference. There's another conference coming up in December. This one's going to be down in San Diego. It's IPSB. The one last week was the BEP-ESOC conference. This is the 4th annual. I've been to all 4. And then IPSB has been around for a lot longer. My first one I went to was in 2014 when I first started learning about this industry. And I've been to, not every year, but I've probably been to, I'm going to say 6-ish, maybe 7 IPSBs. IPSB is more geared for the average agent, right? But I'll say this, if you're squared away, you look sharp, and you go next year to the BEP-ESOC conference, there are numerous companies out there, and it's all their bigwigs. So if you look sharp and you've got a good resume and you're well-spoken and you go up and you introduce yourself, hey, just want to introduce myself. I'm Fidel Taylor. I'm new to the industry. I'm looking to get this type of work or whatever. What kind of work does your company do? Some of the bigger companies, they all have their tables, their booths and so forth. So they're also using it as a recruiting platform. Same thing at IPSB this coming December in San Diego. In San Diego, you got to go, right? I'm already getting a group of guys together for a round of golf that we're going to be doing. So those are the 2 big conferences. The much bigger ones are GSX. That's in September. Right now, if you're newer to the industry, I would not recommend going that route. I'd recommend one of the 2, the BEP-ESOC conference. That's in June, Orlando, and then IPSB. That's in December, and that one this year is in San Diego. They're now moving it around. Ad hoc work. Ad hoc work is, as I mentioned earlier, it depends on what kind of work you're looking for. If you're retired, you're just looking for a couple of days, a week, or maybe it is a quasi temporary detail, a few weeks, month, whatever, and you're sitting in a vehicle out in front of someone's house, and you're totally cool with that, and that's the kind of work you're looking for. There is a lot of that work. Right. It could be workplace violence, ad hoc work. We're called in there for a week or 2. So there's a lot of this different type of stuff. Just remember and keep in mind that every detail you go work, you're going to be on a team, most likely with other people. Save their contacts, save their names, go into your notes, because trust me, after 12, 13 years of doing this now, I was like, oh, I remember working with you. Where did we work? And I don't remember. So in the notes, what I've started doing the last couple of years is in the notes, as I will say, I'll put in there the refresher for me, where did I meet you? What detail did we work on? And I'll even put in there notes as to my impression of you, that way, if I get a call a year down the road by a trusted associate and they're like, hey, so-and-so is applying for this job, do you know them? The name may or may not ring a bell, but I always go into my contacts, and in my contacts, I've got like, I don't know, 4,000 something names, contacts of people. So I'll look in my contacts, and if you show up in there, and I'll look into my notes and be like, oh yeah, I remember this guy or gal. You know, and depending on who that person is, you know, I'll give them an assessment, and because they're calling me for a reason, I'll make, yeah, this guy squared away. This is the kind of work he did with me. You know, what's he applying, you know, for you? Is it on same? Is it on par? Or, you know, have you elevated the last 2-3 years and we haven't been working together? And now you're going for let's say maybe a team lead job or something like that, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay. So that's where he is now 3 years later. Right on. Good for him. Right. So, that's always cool to see as people are progressing in this industry. Wondering if there's any questions. I don't think there are. I got one whole viewer right now. So I don't even know where to go to do this. Comments. Any questions for me? All right, so this link is going to be available. It gets recorded. I might do a little bit of editing. So if you're watching, the date of this is June 22nd, 2026. If you're watching this on one of the platforms, it's LinkedIn, the YouTube page, and my Instagram page. You can comment in there. I'll get the notification. I'll see it, and answer any questions, you know, that I can for you. You know, there, moving on. All right. So hope this helps on your transition into the EP space. Good luck to you. Take care.